The Halloween party was already in full swing when my wife and I arrived. I couldn't take my eyes off her. Her toned body was perfectly showcased by her tight, jet black Catwoman costume. She looked stunning even after having 2 kids. With my parents watching them for the weekend, Alicia was looking hotter than ever. I have to admit, sometimes I forget just how attractive she really is. I was dressed as a pirate. Not bad for a costume, but she clearly stole the show. Alicia quickly kissed me on the cheek and headed off to chat with other guests. I made my way over to the drinks area, where several of my buddies were locked in a heated debate. They were clearly worked up. As I got closer, I realized why. It was one of those ridiculous debates that required you to think outside the box. Who would win, Hulk or Superman? I couldn't help but shake my head. In a room full of grown, intelligent men, I'd expect a more mature topic of conversation. It's common knowledge that Superman would win, so why were we even talking about this? Still, I decided to join in with my expert opinion, which was based on extensive research conducted during my childhood. Hours spent reading Marvel and DC comics gave me an edge. Naturally, I was confident my arguments would settle the matter once and for all. To my surprise, no one took my input seriously. Instead of ending the debate, my comments only made it louder. This is what happens when you mix grown men with beer, burps, farts, and even a little wrestling. You'd think that with a room full of scantily clad nurses, Catwomen, and various other costumes, our attention would be focused elsewhere. But no. Eventually, we all agreed to postpone the debate, the beer and fun taking priority. I planned to stay sober for the night, knowing Alicia would want to stay out and enjoy herself. She was already having a blast, sitting on the couch with her best friend, Susie. Susie, also dressed as Catwoman, looked just as stunning as Alicia. They had been inseparable since middle school. Growing up on the same block, they were so alike that the only way they could coexist was as best friends or fierce enemies. They talked the same, dressed the same, and even looked similar. Their bond was so close that one of their mothers had joked about swapping them as children, but the two hated that story. Susie was married to a guy named Dominic. They got married 2 years before Alicia and I did. At that time, Alicia and I had already been married for 6 years. You'd think that with how similar the two girls were, they would marry men with similar personalities. But Susie's husband, Dominic, was my complete opposite. I work in an office, managing 6 local restaurants for the company. While I'm businesslike and polished, Dominic works with his hands. He spends long hours lifting heavy materials in a local factory, and he's built like a tank. Unlike me, who's kept in shape with some casual gym visits, Dominic practically lives in the gym. His physique shows it. He has long hair tied into a ponytail and a beard that makes him look like an Aztec warrior. If I were to describe myself, I'd say I look like Don Draper from Mad Men, clean-cut and well-groomed. Dominic, on the other hand, could easily pass for Drogo from Game of Thrones. I've never really clicked with him. It's not that I dislike him, but we've never had anything in common. To me, he's just Susie's husband. I've never sought out any sort of deeper connection with him, and I don't think he's ever tried either. Tonight, he showed up dressed as Tarzan, of course with nothing more than a loincloth. In cold weather. Classic move from him. I call it a jerk move, actually. Dominic spent most of the night flirting with the women, just like he always did at parties. His behavior often bordered on inappropriate, yet neither Alicia nor Susie seemed to mind his thinly veiled innuendos. They giggled and blushed instead of slapping him. Even Alicia didn't seem to care, which really bothered me. You would think Susie would find it awkward, but no. She just laughed along with him, playfully patting him on the shoulder and telling him to stop, though she never truly scolded him. If anything, she looked proud that women were attracted to her husband. Dominic was in a particularly playful mood that night. Having had a few too many drinks, his inhibitions were even lower than usual. His flirting was obvious, single women, married women, it didn't matter. He grabbed breasts, groped asses, and even rubbed crotches. It's the kind of behavior that would normally make husbands angry, but no one reacted. Maybe they were too drunk, maybe they were afraid of him, or maybe they just didn't want to cause a scene. Whatever the reason, I kept my ear open whenever he was around Alicia. One wrong move and we were leaving. Alicia must have sensed my tension because she came over and asked, "Are you having fun, Greg?" Her voice was loud over the music. I nodded, took a sip of my beer, and watched her sway to the beat. I couldn't help but notice her eyes shift toward Dominic. She didn't realize it, but she was silently checking him out. A wave of jealousy hit me. What kind of idiot dresses as Tarzan when it's freezing outside? Alicia snapped out of her trance and turned to me. "You know Dominic, honey. He always has to be the center of attention." I chuckled, but my mood soured. The beer no longer tasted good. Alicia noticed my change in mood. "Honey, don't tell me you're jealous," she said, almost teasingly. "Why would I be jealous of him? I don't need to strip down to get attention," I replied, a bit more bitter than I intended. She laughed dismissively. "Of course not, honey." Her attention quickly returned to the party, but I couldn't shake the feeling of discomfort. As the night went on and more alcohol was consumed, people became even less shy. Dominic in his loincloth seemed to fade into the background, and I spent time with my real friends. At some point, I realized I hadn't seen Alicia in a while, so I went looking for her. I found her in the kitchen with Dominic, standing too close and whispering in low voices. The intimate vibe hit me hard, and my jealousy flared up instantly. Dominic saw me first and quickly backed away. Alicia must have felt the shift in atmosphere because she turned and saw me too. She tried to smile, but it felt forced. "Hi, darling. I was just looking for you," she said, too quickly. I couldn't help but feel suspicious. "Alicia, I've been in the same place all night," I replied, my tone sharper than I intended. She stiffened, and Dominic quietly left. "Are you mad at me, honey?" she asked, her voice dripping with feigned innocence. "What were you two talking about? I find you in a corner, whispering like teenagers with a secret. What's going on?" "Honey, stop. Nothing happened between me and Dominic. He was just being flirty as always. There's nothing to get your panties in a bunch over." "Are my panties in a bunch?" I snapped. "What the hell does that mean?" A smirk appeared on her face, but it quickly faded, replaced by a look of sympathy. "I'm just a little drunk, honey. Don't mind me." She patted me on the cheek before walking away. For the rest of the night, I kept my eyes peeled. Dominic and Alicia didn't seem to interact much after that. It was almost like they were deliberately avoiding each other, though I did catch them exchanging a few mysterious glances. That was enough to set my spidey senses tingling. I felt awkward, very awkward. I needed a break. The beer was kicking in, and I needed to relieve myself. I went upstairs and handled my business, but as I left the bathroom, I ran right into Dominic. It was as if he had been waiting for me. "Do you have a problem with me, Greg?" he slurred, his eyes narrowing into a challenging stare. "What?" I asked, completely thrown off. "You always look down on me," he continued, his words slurring more with each sentence. "You with your fancy car and house, waving your money around like you're better than me. Do you think you're better than me?" I was stunned. I had no idea where this was coming from. "You're drunk, Dominic. Go home before you say something you'll regret." I tried to push past him, but he wasn't done yet. "What's something I'll regret?" he muttered. Dominic finally had my attention. He smirked and said, "Sleeping sweetly with your pretty wife, huh?" I turned and walked straight toward him until we were inches apart. Shut up. Don't make me act like my suit. I'll kill you, I growled. Leave my wife out of your sick fantasies. He looked at me, grinning. Fantasies? Those are for things that never happened, idiot. I have memories. His words thundered in my ears, cutting through the tension. That was the last straw. You're full of crap, I said, though I wasn't as confident as I had been before the party. What about the mole on her thigh? Or the fact that she's not a real blonde? You can't say that now, though, since she cleaned herself up. That was the final jab he got in before I closed the gap with a fist. The sickening thud of bone meeting bone echoed in the room, followed by the sound of my punch tearing through drywall. My rage was unstoppable as I stormed down the stairs like a bull. When I reached the bottom, Alicia rushed toward me, her eyes wide with concern. Greg, what? The question froze in her mouth when she saw the look on my face. Her eyes filled with tears, and I could see the realization dawning. Dominic had said enough to confirm everything. Oh my God! Someone call 911. Dominic's unconscious. I heard screams from upstairs, but I didn't care. I just stood there, staring at Alicia, as if I'd never known her. She wasn't the woman I thought I married. People started rushing upstairs to see what had happened, but I just stayed frozen, my gaze locked on Alicia, trying to find the woman I thought I knew. At that moment, I couldn't care less about Dominic's well-being. What the hell did you do to my husband? Susie screamed from behind me. I felt small fists pounding against my back. I ducked, avoiding her wild swings. Someone grabbed her and pulled her away. Greg, what the hell? Richard, the host of the party, asked. The hole in the wall belonged to him, but I didn't even acknowledge him. I turned to Susie. Did you know your husband slept with Alicia? Susie fell silent. She stopped swinging at me and just stared, as if she already knew. Her gaze wasn't filled with anger, but more of a knowing look, as if everything suddenly made sense. But she didn't look at Alicia. She looked at me, as though she knew, and now I knew too. I felt a hand on my shoulder. Greg, we need to talk. But not here. I turned to face Alicia, my anger boiling over. I gave her the coldest look I could muster. My rage was so blinding that it brought tears to my eyes. It wasn't because I was crying. It was as though the tears were a release valve, keeping me from exploding. Then I heard a shout from upstairs. He's awake. Susie left us and rushed upstairs to be with her fallen jungle boy. My anger started to fade, and the reality of the situation hit me. What if I killed Dominic? Even though I didn't mean to, one moment of rage could have ruined everything. I could be facing assault charges, and my career, the one I worked so hard for, could be destroyed because I lost my temper with a drunken fool. A drunken fool who slept with my wife. Greg, come on, honey. Let's get out of here. We need to talk. Alicia pleaded.
No, Alicia.
You're going home with your boyfriend and his wife. I'm leaving, I said, pushing past her and heading for the front door. Alicia chased after me, grabbing my arm in desperation. Greg, you won't leave me here. We're going home and we're talking. Can you hear me? I jerked my arm away. Damn it. You're not going to upstage me anymore. I spat. Her face was streaked with tears, a mixture of fury and deep sadness. I can't deal with you right now, Alicia. I don't want to make this worse. I could already go to jail for assault. I don't need to add domestic violence to the list. I snapped. You want to hit me? Do it, chicken. At least you won't ignore me, she yelled, her voice shaking with anger. She poked my chest with her finger, fueling the fire. This will be the first time you've touched me in weeks. Her words hit harder than I expected. What was she saying? Was this really about that? The fact that I hadn't been there for her? Is this your excuse? I shot back, barely holding myself together. Because I don't come home and caress you every night? Is that why you cheated? She didn't answer me in words. Her defiant gaze spoke volumes, and for the first time in a long while I understood. For your information, Alicia, I work for a living. I don't have a husband to pay my bills for me, I snapped. Maybe if you got a job, you'd understand what it's like to come home exhausted. Alicia was practically screaming at me now. Poor Greg, too tired to make love to his wife, but he finds time to sit in front of his computer and watch adult movies every night. Maybe if you stopped looking for silicone Barbie dolls online and paid attention to your wife, she wouldn't have to cry to her best friend about how you're not interested anymore. Her voice was rising, fists clenched at her sides, her face streaked with tears. The pain and anger in her words hit me like a slap. This was the final blow. I was humiliated in front of everyone, unable to respond, completely caught off guard. I wanted to say something, anything, but nothing came out. Everyone, my friends, neighbors, was watching us. Their faces were a mix of shock, disgust, sympathy, and, in some cases, even entertainment. I could feel their eyes on me as the exchange unfolded. I couldn't take it anymore. I turned on my heels and walked away, disappearing into the night. Alicia's desperate cry followed me until I started the engine and drove off. This story is based on real events. In case you were wondering, I'm not Greg in this story. I'm Richard, the guy who threw the Halloween party. Yes, I own the house with the Dominic-sized hole next to my daughter's room. I chose to tell the story from Greg's perspective to help the audience understand the anger and humiliation he felt. I wanted them to feel what he was experiencing, even if it was through my own lens. My wife and I couldn't help but talk about it. We've discussed it over and over since that night. I know it's wrong to get so caught up in someone else's situation, but it's like watching a train wreck. You can't look away. We couldn't help but wonder what we didn't know. Susie wasn't angry when Greg told her about Alicia and Dominic. So, did she know? Was it a threesome or was there more to it? Honestly, a threesome with those two would rival any adult movie. I also noticed the way Alicia and Dominic exchanged looks at the party. There was definitely something there. Maybe I'm overthinking it, maybe not. It was clear that Greg had been neglecting Alicia, especially in the intimate department. Was that an excuse for cheating? No. But does it explain why she did? Absolutely. Women whose intimate needs are constantly rejected may be tempted to cheat, especially if their husbands show interest in other women, like watching adult films. If it makes the wife feel betrayed or inadequate, then it can be seen as a form of cheating. By the way, Alicia is incredibly attractive in real life. Honestly, a man would have to be blind not to notice her. But this proves the saying, for every beautiful woman, there's a man who gets tired of being with her. The real question is, what happens next? Right now, the four of them are staying silent about the situation, but something like this can't stay quiet for long. It's just a matter of time before it all comes out. Although this story is based on true events, I didn't witness everything. I had to take creative liberties with some details. For example, I didn't hear the exact conversation that took place when Greg hit Dominic. I heard it from others, but I had to embellish the wording. Of course, I didn't know what was going on in Greg's head either, but I could imagine. I know what I would have been feeling. Alicia treated Greg very unfairly, no matter her reasons. I'm not sure if Greg should aim for reconciliation or divorce. I'll be honest, I'm a little biased, since Greg is a friend of mine. And by the way, Superman would totally defeat the Hulk. I agree with Greg on that one: thermal vision, flight, super speed, no contest unless there's kryptonite involved. But that's neither here nor there. I had just finished the conversation when Betty interrupted. Mr. Chiron, they're calling you online. It's Mr. Ford. I sighed. Greg? He called me? Yes, sir. He sounds a little upset. Well, yes, his wife publicly humiliated him. If he wasn't upset, I'd be worried, I replied, chuckling a little. Thank you, Betty. I'll handle it. I waited for the click, and then I was on the line with Greg. Greg? Hello, buddy. I've been trying to call you since I found out my wife slept with that idiot, I said, not daring to speak the words aloud. Yes, I've had a lot to think about. I could hear the sarcasm in Greg's voice when he answered the phone. So, you want to talk? Why, Richard? So you can post my story online? Does your exciting tale need a sequel? Do your loyal fans want to know what happened next to the idiot who couldn't satisfy his wife? Maybe they'll get to see how my damn life turns out. His anger was clear, and I could tell that he was not just upset with his wife, her cheating best friend, and Dominic, but with me too. Great. Greg and I had been friends since high school. He played baseball, I played football. We stayed connected through the years, even after going our separate ways. He went straight to college, and I joined the Air Force. After I got out, Greg returned to our hometown and got a job as a manager at Olive Garden. It seemed like a waste of his college degree, but he worked hard, got promoted, and eventually became a district manager with a salary almost matching mine. After my honorable discharge, I took a job with a company that contracts with the military, and I moved back to the hometown. Our friendship picked up right where it had left off. But now I was the one Greg was furious with. Normally, I would have cracked a joke to try to lighten the mood, but I knew this was no time for humor. I had no choice but to let him vent. You know, Richard, I ran away like a coward, he said, his voice dripping with sarcasm. A very nice touch. His words stung. At that moment, I felt like a terrible friend. Greg, where are you? We need to talk. He chuckled bitterly. You know what's funny, Richard? I've become really popular lately. More popular than I ever was before. Everyone wants to talk to me now. Must be my charming personality. I noticed his voice was slurred. I could hear the sound of liquid being poured. Greg, are you drunk? His laugh was hollow. No, Richard. I was drunk an hour ago. You wouldn't recognize me now. I sighed. Fine, I was a bad friend. But I want to fix it. Where are you? Just as I asked, I was putting on my coat and grabbing my keys. Work could wait. Richard, I won't tell you where I am. Don't you dare come to this bar looking for me. I'll mess you up if you do. The line went dead, but I knew exactly where he was. There were only a few decent bars in our city, and Greg's favorite was one where he went for the pretty bartender. She was a woman who could flirt with anyone, yet give the impression of being completely out of reach. It didn't stop her from being popular. When I walked into the bar, my heart sank. There he was, sitting alone at the bar, looking defeated. The place was empty. Karen, the bartender, saw me and waved with a sympathetic smile. Does this handsome stallion belong to you? She joked, but the smile didn't reach her eyes. I nodded softly and motioned for her to give us a minute. Greg, I said quietly. His fist came at me so quickly I didn't have time to react. The hit sent me flying backward, and I saw stars. No wonder Dominic had been hurt so badly earlier. I found myself on the floor, wiping blood from my lip. Greg stood over me, still furious, but after a moment, he shook his head and returned to his place at the counter. I got to my feet, wiped the blood from my mouth, and waved to Karen, who had started clearing tables. She was looking at us with wide eyes, but I nodded silently, signaling her to stay back. She hesitated, but then returned to her work. Now that you've got that out of the way, can we talk? I asked, sitting down next to him. Greg took another sip of his beer, his mood unchanged. Off the record? He asked sarcastically. I chuckled quietly to myself. At least he still had his mind. That was a good sign. I wasn't sure what would happen next, but this was progress. Greg took another sip, then looked me square in the eyes. For God's sake, Richard, it was humiliating enough to go through that. Then to read about it and know all my friends knew it was me? Greg, I just wrote it. I didn't want to humiliate you, I replied, trying to convince him, and maybe even myself, that it wasn't a big deal. Besides, no one will know it's you. He glanced at me like he wanted to punch me again. 2 women, Tarzan, and a pirate, not to mention the pirate who threw Tarzan into a wall. How many damn Halloween parties do you think this happens at? Most of them are the same. I could see the anger building in his eyes, and I knew humor wouldn't work here. Okay, maybe this is all a bit too much, I said. I'm truly sorry for putting you in that position. He looked at me, and after a long pause, he rubbed his chin and laughed. You still hit like a truck, he said. No wonder you always got your 5th place handouts in boxing. It wasn't much, but it melted the ice between us. Slowly, we moved from MMO to my car. Karen gave me a grateful look as we left, giving me a quick hug. Take care of him, Richard. He's going through a lot, she said quietly. My jaw was throbbing, starting to swell, but I was more concerned about Greg. The moment I strapped him into the passenger seat, he fell unconscious. It was as if he hadn't slept for days. I decided to take him to my place, not his mom's, so I called another friend. John, how's it going? He answered cheerfully. John was one of those guys who never fully grew up, always the life of the party but a bit immature. He was the one who started the whole Hulk versus Superman debate, and while he was a great guy, he had this tendency to make everyone act like teenagers. John, I need your help. I found Greg at MMO. I might need you to help me get him into the house and into bed. He's out cold, I explained. I'm glad you found him. I've been looking for him all week, John replied. After what that jerk did to him, it's a miracle he didn't put a bullet in his head. John arrived in his Mustang and parked behind my Tahoe. Together, we struggled to lift 200 pounds of dead weight and got Greg settled on the couch in my basement. It wasn't easy, but we managed. After chatting for a bit, John left, and I promised to keep him updated. Now, home early with a quiet house all to myself, I realized I had nothing to do. I didn't want to leave in case Greg woke up and got confused, so I decided to grill a steak, bake some potatoes, and catch a game or two. Eventually, I found a documentary and settled in with my gourmet meal. It wasn't long before Nikki walked in with the kids, her face lighting up when she kissed me on the cheek. The kids rushed upstairs, and she asked, "What are you doing home so early?" I found Greg at MMO, drunk out of his mind. Brought him here and put him in the basement, I explained. Nikki's face changed to one of concern. Are you sure this is a good idea? I don't want any drunken behavior in front of the kids. He'll be fine, honey. I'll make sure he stays in line, I reassured her. She stroked my cheek and paused when she saw the swelling on my face. Richard, what the hell happened to you? I'm fine, honey. Don't worry about it, I said quickly. Rich, get him out of here, she said, clearly worried. A man just found out his wife was cheating on him, publicly. Anyone would feel humiliated. He's a mess and he went through it alone. I'm his friend and he had a lot of anger built up. I didn't care if he let it out on me. Besides, my jaw's not made of glass like Tarzan's. Nikki couldn't help but laugh. Seeing Tarzan get his 5th place handed to him by a pirate was pretty funny, she admitted. I don't think Jane would be too happy about it, though. Definitely, I chuckled. Dominic should spend less time pumping iron and more time hitting the bag, or at least learn to dodge. We both laughed. One of the things I've always loved about Nikki is her sense of humor. I went downstairs to check on Greg. His thunderous snoring told me he was still alive. Barely. His heart was still beating, but the rest of him was essentially comatose. I put a pillow under his head, and just as he made a sound loud enough to wake the dead, I couldn't help but mutter, "What the hell, Greg?" His alcohol fumes were so strong, they could have killed everyone nearby. The smell stuck to me. I needed to get out of there. A few hours later, Greg emerged from the depths of hell, looking like a zombie. His bloodshot eyes screamed death and decay as he shuffled into the kitchen. Nikki gave me a look, silent but heavy with meaning. Keep him in line or he's gone. I stood up to greet him. "How are you feeling, buddy?" He shot back, "Like my wife cheated on me, humiliated me in front of all our neighbors, and then ran over me with a truck. At least my memory's intact. 2 out of 3 isn't bad." His eyes narrowed. "My memory's fine. I remember your damn story too. You remember how you hit me in the face for it." He rubbed my tender jaw. "This part's a bit vague. You might have to do it again just to be sure." Despite his desire to hit me again, I knew he wouldn't. "Greg, I'm really sorry about the story. I never thought so many people would see it or that you'd find out." He glanced at me. "People actually read it? Who did you send it to?" I sighed. "I received a message from some guy named Harry, who heard about the party from someone. Then he read your story online." "Who's this guy?" "You don't know him. He's some obnoxious bragger from Virginia." Greg chuckled. "Do you know him? Is he a nice guy?" I laughed out loud. "Yeah, he's interesting. He took my side, though, and thinks you're in 5th place." "Well, I'm sure he thought that before reading the story," Greg said with a grin. I slapped him on the back, and he didn't seem to mind. We were good again. "Richard, why did you have to make me look like such a weakling? Did you really just up and run away, weakling?" I laughed. "Greg, you took the guy down with one blow. I was worried you were going to bite his ear off. If you'd boxed like that in college, you would have been a champion. Nobody thinks you're a weakling." "Well, screw you. It was a hobby. I didn't love it." He grinned, shaking his head. "I really kicked his 5th place, didn't I?" he added with a mix of pride and humor. "Hell yes," I said. "Bet your sweet 5th place couldn't do that." He nudged me playfully with his elbow. "No, it'd probably take me 2 hits, I teased. We both laughed. Felt good to hear him laugh again. "What happened after I left?" Greg asked, looking over his shoulder. "I half expected to get dragged into prison." "Well, after you left, they dragged Dominic to the emergency room. He had a concussion. He wanted to press charges, but Susie and Alicia talked him out of it. Alicia begged him, saying if you were arrested, it'd be hard for you to come back from that." Greg chuckled bitterly. "Yeah, well, there's not much hope left for this." I nodded sadly. "So what happened after you left?" "The only thing we heard was the sound of rubber hitting the road and the roar of your engine," Greg said. "I wanted to chase you, but my Tahoe was blocked by other cars. I was worried you'd have an accident. You didn't answer any of our calls." "Yeah, well, I needed to get out of there and think. I couldn't deal with it. All our friends were judging me. I needed space." "You went to your mom's house?" I asked. "It must have been pretty bad for you to go back there." Greg sighed. "Well, life challenges you sometimes. Sometimes the only way to deal with it is to do something you'd never normally do." I sat back, listening to him. "What happened?" "I drove like a maniac," Greg said, his voice quiet. "I ended up on side streets outside the area. I didn't care about stop signs, speed limits, or traffic lights. I just drove. None of it mattered. I was the only one on the road." "What was that sound?" I asked, confused. Greg's face grew distant. I looked at the passenger seat. I recognized the ringtone. It was Alicia calling. Her face lit up on my screen. I remember taking that photo. I was so happy, so in love. But now her smile, frozen on the screen, it felt like a lie. If I answered it, her voice would be a lie too. I couldn't do it. I almost threw my phone out the window. She slept with Dominic. I bet it was one of those passionate kisses, the kind that speaks of excitement and lust. Crap, I bet he loved it. Another man sleeping with my wife. What right did he have? I was the one who stayed with her when she was sick. I was the one who held her hand and wiped her sweat in the delivery room twice. I promised to love her, in sickness and in health. I dedicated my life to her. The ringtone kept tormenting me with its lies. Stopped for a minute, then started again. I turned it off, ripped out the battery. Silence. No more lies. I drove around aimlessly for what felt like hours. My body must have been on autopilot, because my mind shut down, trying to protect itself from being overloaded with thoughts of tonight's events. And worse, the ones I imagined between my wife and Dominic. I didn't realize it until I looked up and saw my parents' garage in front of me. My subconscious had brought me back to the place of my childhood. A place I swore I'd never return to. I turned off the engine and went inside. Every child has a key to their parents' house, even if they've sworn never to return. Maybe not every child, but I had one. It was late and the living room was dark. Exactly how it had been for decades. Nothing had changed. The sofa, the coffee table, the lamp, all the same. I could navigate this place with my eyes closed. Strangely, that brought me some comfort. It was like returning to safety after an earthquake had shattered everything else. That night had changed everything for me. I used to be skeptical when people said their world changed in an instant, except in tragic events, of course. But that night, I became a believer. Everything I knew about my life had been turned upside down in one drunken conversation with a Neanderthal. In the familiar environment of my childhood home, I felt some stability. What I needed most was peace and quiet, and for the first time in hours, I found it. "Who's there?" I heard my mom call from upstairs. I pictured her crouched with a baseball bat, ready to beat the crap out of an intruder. "It's me, Ma." "Gregory," I called back. The light flipped on, blinding me for a moment. I had to squint to avoid being blinded. "What the hell are you doing lurking around in the dark? Trying to give me a heart attack?" I smiled. "Glad to see you too, Mom." As my eyes adjusted, I saw her. An elderly lady in floral pajamas, her hair in curlers. "Why are you here so late? And why are you dressed like an idiot?" I glanced down and realized I was still in most of my pirate costume, minus the hat, parrot, and eye patch. "Long story, Ma. I'm staying here for a while. Tomorrow the kids will go home, but I'll be back. I'll explain everything then, but I don't want to discuss it in front of the kids." I didn't ask her to stay with me. I just let her know what my plans were. It might seem strange to some, but not to us. My family doesn't do excessive affection. My dad's a straightforward guy, never says more than necessary and expects the same from others. The same went for my mom. She wasn't big on showing affection either. How they even ended up together, or how they managed to have kids, is a mystery that's both puzzling and disturbing. "Great, Gregory. You know where everything is." "I'm going back to bed," she said, before disappearing up the stairs. The next morning, I activated my phone to check the damage. 29 missed calls, 15 from Alicia, a few from Richard, and a couple from others at the party. I didn't answer any of them. I already knew what they wanted. To talk about the adult films, the wife's neglect, and my whereabouts. I didn't need any of it. After several hours of restless sleep, the pain, the anger, and the confusion still weighed heavily on me. I rolled out of bed and slipped out of the house before my mom woke up. I left a note saying I was leaving and that if Alicia called, to let her know I would call her when I was ready. I also told her she was free to take the kids if she wanted, but if not, I'd bring them home later. Luckily, it was Sunday, and I didn't need to be at work. I needed something strong to numb the pain from last night, something as strong as the ache in my chest. I parked outside my favorite bar and went inside. For the next couple of weeks, I hid at my mom's house. My only contact with Alicia was when I dropped the kids off or picked up a few things. After several stilted attempts at conversation, she left, upset. Before I left that day, I heard her talking on the phone. I listened carefully. If she'd been talking to that guy, I would have freaked out. But from what I overheard, it was Susie. I wasn't sure if that was better or worse. I spent most of my time between my mom's house and the bar. My dad was away on business, so it was just me and my mom. Oh joy. She wasn't the type for deep conversations. To her credit, she really listened and was supportive, but I didn't think she understood. Besides, I'd never tell her about the adult films or anything like that, especially after all the warnings she gave me in my younger years about blindness and hairy palms. While I stayed with her, we didn't speak much. I gave her the general idea of what was going on, and she listened quietly, offering very little advice. "What are you going to do about it?" she asked once. All I could do was shrug and say, "I don't know." She simply replied, "You'll figure it out." And with that, the subject was dropped. It sounds cold, but surprisingly, it was comforting. I didn't have to retell the whole story over and over. She didn't demand constant updates or treat me like some fragile porcelain doll. She let me grieve in my own way, without trying to cheer me up or make me feel better. Felt like freedom. I took all my sick and personal days. I just couldn't face anyone. Even though no one from work was at the party, we lived in a small town where news traveled fast. The word about what happened spread like wildfire. I wasn't just dealing with a cheating wife anymore. She had destroyed me publicly. I had to hear her voice ringing in my head, the words of gossip that haunted me. Poor Greg, too tired to make love to his wife, but he finds time to sit in front of his computer watching adult movies every night. Maybe if he stopped looking for silicone Barbie dolls on the internet and paid more attention to his wife, she wouldn't have to cry to her best friend about how he's not interested in her anymore. How do you come back from that? Eventually, I had to turn off my phone. It started malfunctioning, buzzing nonstop with calls from Alicia, Richard, and others. I didn't pick up any of them. The damn thing wouldn't stop ringing. I didn't know if it was the universe's way of protecting me or just my own male pride, but the cops never showed up. I watched my friends, mostly through emails and calls, but they never came to my parents' house. I realized that when people don't know what to say, they avoid the situation. They weren't bad friends. They just had no idea what to do, so they did nothing. It was a curse and a blessing. At least no one distracted me. With nothing else to do, all I could do was think about it. So I drank at the bar. Karen became my goddess and my savior. But the worst part about staying at my mom's house was being away from my kids. It was exile of my own making, but it still sucked. Seeing them meant seeing Alicia. It was like knowing there's a warm bed waiting for me, but I had to swim across a half-frozen lake to get there. So I drank more to forget about it. It wasn't until Karen showed me a story written by a friend that I broke out of my pattern. Kathleen. That's what it was called. The story bore striking similarities to my own. Two characters, Pirate and Tarzan, Superman versus Hulk. I couldn't help but laugh at the absurdity. I pulled out my phone, turned it on, and dialed 7 digits, my fingers shaking with anger. "Good morning, Mr. Curtin's office. This is Betty. How can I help you today?" "Richard." "Today." At Richard's house, I muttered under my breath. "So what are you going to do about Alicia? Divorce? Part ways? Beat the crap out of her?" Greg said with a quiet, sad chuckle as he stared at the plate in front of him. I saw Greg replaying the events of Halloween in his mind, listening to her words over and over again, as if they were on repeat. After a long silence, I finally had to ask, Greg, I have to ask you something. You can tell me to go to hell if this is too personal, but what did she mean by that adult movie comment? Greg's cheeks turned red, and he shifted uncomfortably in his chair. So what? I sometimes watch those films, but it's definitely not every day. Are you saying she doesn't watch them, or that you don't? I asked, trying to understand. His tone turned defensive. Of course I watch them, Greg snapped. But Alicia said you were watching instead of making love to her. Is that true? Yeah, I replied, knowing the truth. Go to hell, Richard. That's too personal, Greg growled. I held up my hands in surrender. Okay, but I just want to understand what went wrong. You guys always seemed so happy. What happened? He stared down at his plate, his fork circling around as if searching for the right words. Finally, he dropped his fork and rubbed his face with both hands, letting out a sad sigh mixed with something else. Guilt, maybe. I work 10 to 12 hours a day, Rich. If I'm lucky, I only work 5 days a week. By the time I get home, I'm exhausted. I deal with angry investors, clients, managers, harassment claims, discrimination claims. Everything. All of it falls on me. If a customer claims to have seen a rat and extorts us for free food, I have to deal with it, he explained, his voice heavy with exhaustion. He paused, taking a deep breath as if he was gearing up to share more. I stayed quiet, waiting. Alicia needs a lot of foreplay. A lot. I have to spend 30 minutes just getting her ready. Then, when she's ready, we can finally get to the intimate part. She likes to change positions, wants me to talk dirty to her. All of that. And don't get me wrong, I love my wife. I really do. When I have the energy, it's great. I know guys who complain that their wives are frigid or unimaginative. Alicia isn't any of those things. But after dealing with everything at work, I just don't have the energy to do that every night. His voice cracked with sadness as he continued. Sometimes, I just feel better when I'm alone. I hate saying that, but every man dreams of a woman like Alicia, someone who's passionate and really into intimacy. I'm lucky to have her. I know it. But sometimes I feel overwhelmed. I nodded, letting him speak freely. It's hard to admit, but this is why I feel stuck. I do so much for her, for the girls. I work my ass off to give them everything I didn't have as a child. My dad was frugal, bought me only what I needed. I want more for my girls, and I love spending time with them. They're my world. But sometimes, I just wish I didn't have to do everything for everyone else. When I come home after all the crap I deal with at work, I just want to be. I don't want to always be a dad or a husband or a boss. Greg's voice cracked again as he added, I think I miss just being me sometimes. I could sense the vulnerability in him, so I asked gently, how long has it been since you two made love? Before the party. Greg looked down at his food, his face hardening. I don't know, Rich. I really don't. I didn't even realize how much time had passed. I nodded, feeling the weight of his words. Then, I saw the anger flash in his eyes. But that doesn't give her the right to do what she did. I didn't humiliate her in front of everyone. I didn't sleep with another woman. She should have come to me first. Why didn't she come to me? His frustration was evident. I took a deep breath, trying to make him see my point without making it feel like I was taking Alicia's side. Maybe for the same reason you didn't tell her why you watch adult films. Communication is hard, especially if you don't realize you need to say something in the first place. How do you tell your spouse that you're unhappy? It's not easy. Greg looked away, and we both fell silent for a moment. I decided to switch gears to lighten the mood a bit. So, about my wall, I teased, hoping to break the tension. He gave me a look and realized I was joking. He smiled, shaking his head. Consider us even for this story, idiot. He chuckled. I couldn't help but laugh, even if just for a moment. Seeing Greg laugh again, even briefly, felt like a small victory. I thought the blow to the face had leveled us off, I said, grinning. Not even close, Greg replied, shaking his head. I saw Nikki standing in the doorway with a strange look on her face. Her eyes immediately told me I needed to see her, so I left the table and walked over to her. What's the matter, dear? I asked, concerned. She pulled me closer, whispering nervously, somehow, Alicia knows Greg is here. She's on her way. I think John probably called her to yell at her or something stupid like that, and he unwittingly gave her information about Greg's whereabouts. You need to stop her at the door. I whispered urgently, Nikki, you don't have to get involved in this. She shook her head. Rich, I'm not getting involved. Greg needs to handle this. He's been avoiding her for 2 weeks. I felt frustration rise inside me. He cheated on him, Nikki. Have you forgotten about this? No, I haven't forgotten. I have a hole in the wall as a reminder. Nikki's voice was soft but firm. She knew how to be supportive without overstepping. I turned to look at Greg. He was absent-mindedly playing with the food on his plate, unaware of the kamikaze mission preparing to ambush him. I took a deep breath and asked, What do you want me to do, Nikki? Her face softened with a mix of concern and determination. He has to deal with this himself. You can be his friend and help him get through this, but he can't run from it. She patted my chest before walking away. I turned to Greg, preparing him for what was coming. Greg, I said softly, you can't whisper. She's on her way. He rubbed his chin and winced. Then, a look of determination crossed his face. Fine, he said firmly, pushing his chair back. He turned to me, looking me straight in the eyes. I'm ready to deal with this. Greg stood up and walked out the back door, and I followed. The sky was painted with soft hues of orange, red, and every shade in between. The sunset was serene, almost calming. But then the serenity disappeared. I said, Alicia, I called, my voice cutting through the peaceful scene. I didn't turn to face her. I just kept my eyes on the sky, ignoring the sudden tension that filled the air. Alicia's voice broke the silence. I've been looking everywhere for you, honey. Her choice of words couldn't have been worse. I muttered, I was in the same place all night, deliberately repeating the exact words I'd said when I found her with Dominic a couple of weeks ago. She looked confused for a moment, not understanding my response. Greg, we need to talk, she said. I nodded, agreeing with her. Out of my peripheral vision, I saw her agony. Swollen eyes, flushed cheeks, and a sullen expression. At least that's how her voice sounded. I love you, honey, she started. It's a lie, I interrupted, my voice sharp. Greg, stop it, Alicia pleaded. Just stop it. You can't love me and humiliate me like you did, I continued. Putting our relationship on display like that? I would never do that to you. What are you talking about? Alicia snapped, her anger rising. You did this to me. You rushed down the stairs like a madman, and in front of everyone, you asked Susie if she knew I was sleeping with her husband. If you wanted to talk privately, you could have pulled me aside and yelled at me in the car. But no, you aired our dirty laundry in front of everyone. As much as I wanted to argue, part of me knew she was right. I had acted in anger. Okay, Alicia, I agree with you. I didn't handle this well, but I didn't start this. Your boyfriend confronted me, calling me out in front of everyone. I had to deal with it, and yeah, I was furious. Could I have handled it better? Maybe, But I didn't cheat on you. Her face softened for a moment as I continued. You didn't have another woman coming up to you and shoving my betrayal in your face. I stared her down, watching the anger drain away and replaced with remorse and guilt. I know, Greg, she whispered, looking down. Do you know, Alicia? Do you really know? I asked, my voice steady. You may not have physically cheated on me, but you weren't with me either. Her eyes flickered with recognition. She looked up at me. Do you remember that night? My birthday? She asked, her voice almost pleading. I did remember. It was the day I had to fire Frank. He was a good friend and one of my assistant managers. He got accused of sleeping with one of his subordinates. I defended him. I knew he wouldn't do something so reckless. But then the girl had text messages. Damn text messages. My voice trailed off as the weight of everything sank in. I said, we went to dinner for your birthday, and then we made love that night, Alicia. She shook her head sadly. No, Greg. We had a night, but you couldn't even enjoy it. When I tried to hug you, you pushed me away and said you were tired. That's why I gave you space. Her voice caught in her throat, and she swallowed hard. I knew she wasn't finished yet, so I stayed quiet and waited for her to continue. Then I woke up in the middle of the night, she began. I saw you sitting in front of your computer, watching adult films and satisfying yourself. Her words hit me like a slap. She tried to hold back the tears, her body shaking as she struggled to cry silently. I sat next to her, unable to speak. For the first time, I started to understand her point of view, to see how she was feeling. Up until tonight, I had seen her as the one who betrayed me. Now, I wasn't sure who she was anymore. I understand, Alicia, I said quietly. I took you for granted. Her eyes flashed with anger. Do you really understand, Greg? Do you know how much this devastated me? Do you know how painful it is to realize that at your best, you weren't enough to satisfy your husband? Her voice trembled with emotion, and I could feel her pain. After that, I told myself I wouldn't ask you for intimacy anymore. I wanted you to ask me, but you never did. So I slept with Dominic. Did he make you feel like a woman? She sniffled next to me, wiping her nose on her sleeve. Yes, Greg. He and Susie did. Damn it, Susie and I got drunk once in high school. We did something we both regretted, and we blamed it on the alcohol the next morning. Pretended it never happened. She paused, looking up at the darkening sky above us. But a few weeks ago, I felt like the most inferior woman on earth. I went to Susie's house in tears. I was so broken, and I told her I needed to get drunk. So we drank. The feeling of inferiority started to fade, but it didn't disappear. I could see the weight of it all in her eyes. And how did you end up in bed with Dominic? I asked softly. Her eyes flashed with anger and a little guilt. He came home from work and found us completely drunk. Susie told him about my problems, and he started telling me how beautiful I was, how pretty he thought I looked. Susie agreed with him. That's when the story from high school came up again. He got so excited about it, he told us to kiss. We were so drunk, we did. What started as a playful kiss turned into something more. I didn't resist when he leaned in. She turned to face me, her voice cracking. How many times have you been intimate with them? I whispered, her voice barely audible. She answered, twice. It hurt. The drunk incident was bad enough. I could recover from that blow, but knowing she was back again, that's something else entirely. I sat in silence, the gravity of her confession settling in. After a long pause, I asked, so, at the party in the kitchen, what did you and Dominic talk about? Her anger flared up again, mixed with guilt. He was drunk. He was telling me how hot my costume was and how he wanted me to come to their house that night for some fun. I tried to get him to stop talking, told him I made a mistake, and that the three of us couldn't do this anymore. Then he started getting aggressive, rubbing against me. That's when you came over. I swallowed hard. You gathered your panties in a pile, didn't you? I asked, repeating something she'd once said to me. She bit her lip and shook her head. I was angry, Greg. Seeing Dominic pester me like that reminded me of how you didn't value me. Were you planning on going to his house that night? To have some fun, since he appreciated you? She looked into my eyes. No, she whispered. I was hoping you would finally ask me. I chose the Catwoman outfit because I knew you liked Michelle Pfeiffer in Batman Returns. You once told me how you fell in love with her because of that suit. I saw the way your eyes lit up when you looked at me. I thought you finally desired me. I almost missed the party altogether because I wanted you to take me home, to finally feel wanted. Her voice broke. I was hoping you'd take me, but then Dominic happened. I wish I knew, Greg said, his voice filled with regret. God knows why I didn't do it. Well, I guess there's enough guilt here to go around. Alicia turned to him, hope glimmering in her eyes. So, what do we do now, Greg? I don't want to lose you. I love you so much. I'd give anything for us to get through this. My head was spinning. Can I get through this? Could I forgive my wife, knowing I played a part in our misfortune? Leave the past in the past. I didn't know. I don't know, Alicia. So much has happened. It would take a lot for us to begin to heal from this. A flicker of hope appeared in her eyes. She wiped away her tears and grabbed my hand. I'll do anything. Please, give me a chance to prove how much I love you. I looked into her eyes and felt that hope, too. It would take time, but maybe we could heal each other if we both worked hard enough. Okay, Alicia, I said, but this will require some things. First, we need to go to a consultation. It's necessary. Obviously, we still have a lot to work through. We need to figure out how to communicate with each other. She kissed me on the cheek and hugged my neck. Yes, honey, whatever you say. Secondly, I continued, you should stop being friends with Susie. That was when I saw the light dim in her eyes, and it felt like a blow to my heart. What did you say? She asked, her voice trembling. I said you should stop being friends with Susie, I repeated. Greg, why are you asking me to do this? She asked, incredulously. You can't be serious. Alicia, you cheated on me with her and her husband. I said, my voice steady but hurt. What do you think I'm supposed to do about it? Just trust that it won't happen again? Every time you're with her or talk to her, don't you know what I'll be thinking? How can I heal if the salt is rubbed into my wound every time? She pushed me away as if I'd slapped her. New tears filled her eyes, and we stood in silence for a long time, just looking at each other. You want me to choose between my best friend and my husband? She said, her voice barely above a whisper. I can't do this, Greg. Please don't make me choose. The pain that ran through me was worse than the pain of catching her cheating. Strangely, there was no rage to mask it this time. I felt my heart constrict in my chest, crushed by the realization that this was too much. The woman I loved most in the world did not love me the same way. I was one of her loves, not her only love. The thought was unbearable. Please don't make this choice, Alicia, I whispered. She couldn't break her ties with Susie. The connection was too strong, more than her love for me. She was unwilling to give it up, even at the cost of our marriage. A year later, they divorced. It took so long because Alicia fought to stop it, even to the point of humiliating herself. She came to Greg's work, begging him not to leave her in front of everyone. It was a heartbreaking scene that made everyone uneasy. Even I secretly hoped he might give her another chance. But Greg couldn't bear the thought of her refusing to let go of Susie. He felt that he shouldn't have to share a place in her heart. It was clear that neither spouse should have to share their heart. The wounds from their marriage were deep and would take time to heal. A year later, both of them did their best to co-parent, trying not to drag each other down in front of their children. As for Greg, he found someone new. This Halloween, he brought a girl to my party. She wasn't dressed as Catwoman, but I understood. She was probably a rebound, not his next great love, but a step forward. In real life, healing from a broken heart is a process, a step-by-step journey. The heart doesn't heal immediately, it takes time. Alicia, Susie, and Dominic didn't come to the party. They stopped communicating with the rest of us. Susie still stands by her friend, accusing Greg of being unfair and forcing her to make an impossible choice. Thank you for your viewing. See you next time. If you enjoyed this, subscribe to JK Tells a Story for more tales.